Hello, everybody. Craig Sherwood here, along with Bob Hart once again. Bob, how you doing?
Fantastic. So happy to be here.
Well, so happy to have you here.
It's great to be upright.
Ready to do our next edition here of Coach's Corner, and we really appreciate all the people who sent in, emails and commented to us how much they've enjoyed the show. If you ever have ideas for guests for our show or any ideas, please send them in. We read every email. So Bob, how's baseball going right now? What's going on in the world of Burbank High baseball?
You don't play a whole lot of baseball when it's wet out like this, so we are kind of shut down at this point. We are getting ready for the holiday. We have exit meetings tomorrow for a couple hours. And it's kind of, getting ready for the holidays for us. And then we start back up in January or so. So, that's how we roll.
Right. I don't think you guys do any kind of activities during finals week, right? You guys are
we shut it down for finals. They kind of do their own thing, hopefully hitting the books so that we're, where we need to be academically.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, what do you look for this year? Are you happy with how things are going?
Start with a great GPA from every one of my guys. It'll start foundationally just at that level. And then we build off of that, you know what I mean? Because usually there's a correlation between those guys work hard in the classroom, they come out and they bust their butt for us. So kind of goes hand in hand,
Okay. Well, I think that now we're at the end of the year, and what do you think about the Rams so far this year? I know you're a Ram fan, so
I am. It's been tough. Some good games, that we've some tight games that we just find a way to lose a little bit. So it's been rough. We had some good losses. If coach as a coach, you know what a good loss looks like. It's a lot different than a bad one. So the game against the Ravens was prime example. A game that we should have won. A couple bad plays, bad timing.
Could be the best team in football, and you hung right in there with them, and it was just a punt return that kind of killed it for which how often does a punt return happen in overtime?
Yeah, and they missed the big clip on that as well. I slowed it up about 100 times to validate up my loss. So yeah, I saw that there was a little bit more to that play than meets the eye.
And your Bruins didn't do too bad in their bowl game?
You're not talking about UCLA's loss last night to
No.
Cal State Northridge in basketball at Pauley. You're not talking about that?
No, that's the one John Wooden's still spinning around on.
Oh my goodness!
Holy cow! No, I'm talking about the bowl game they played against the Boise.
Tale of two cities. First half was ugly. Second half was pretty.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to have a good half, it's always better to have the second half better.
Those who run the ball usually win games, I think, because your defense isn't on the field the whole time. Your offensive line gets in a rhythm. You don't have to rely on the 47 passes a game. So. Unless you got a guy who can throw, like a madman.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. Let's take our quick commercial break here, and we come back. We've got a really special guest here in studio, and I think you're going to enjoy listening to his story. So we'll be right back after this.
How would you like your business advertised in this very spot? My Burbank Talks is looking for local businesses interested in a 30-second spot to appear in our podcasts. If you're interested, please email advertising@myburbank.com, and we'll be glad to discuss all the exciting possibilities with you. Now, back to our podcast.
Okay. And please, we'd love to have you as an advertiser, and we give you a lot of shout-outs and everything else. So please think about that. So our guest today, Coach, we're lucky to have a kind of a topical guest, in here, which is exciting. Our guest today is now the head football coach at Westlake High School, Jesse Craven, who had been at Burroughs the last 4 years. He was last year's Pacific League Coach of the Year, and Burroughs Indians won Burroughs Bears. Holy cow!
Man. Oh my goodness!
I gotta remember it's 50 years of Indians for me. So, the Bears actually won the 2023 Pacific League Championship, which is the first in many years. Coach Craven started at St. John's University, followed by stops at University of San Diego, Santa Monica College, Crespi High School, and Cal Lutheran University. He has married. He has a wife named Kim, and they have 2 children named Bodie and Navy. Coach, really good to have you on the show today. Thanks for coming by.
Welcome.
Thanks. I appreciate the invite, and I'm Yeah, excited to get on this. My Burbank is a staple in the community, and on Friday nights we all, even after games, we're looking at my Burbank sports on Twitter. So it's exciting to be here.
Don't let my sports center Jim hear that. He's going to get all excited now. Okay, so I've got to ask you. So, two children named Bodie and Navy. Those are very unusual. Where'd those names come from? I love the names. I think they're great names. They're sports names too.
Yeah,
where'd they come from?
I give all the credit to my wife. When we came to my son, we had a couple names. We were going back and forth. She wanted Bodie, and I wanted Bo. And then we went back and forth. We kind of switched, and then eventually it was like, oh, I guess we could still call him Bo if we call him Bodie. So,
Sure.
Right.
just a good name, has good meaning behind it. So it was that was the easy one. Yeah.
Okay, and Navy. What got you into Navy?
Navy was a name that actually, again, my wife had brought up, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. And then we went back and forth, and actually, like, it was in the hospital. Like, she was born, and we were like, we gotta give her the name. Like, we gotta make that final pick, and and we went with Navy, and very, very happy with it. She is.
Yeah, I think that's great. And she watches the Army Navy game now. She always has a rooting interest in one of the teams.
Right, yeah.
So, and now if she ever does enlist one day, it's got to be in,
right, yeah.
She can't
Exactly.
go
Right.
Army. No
Or she
way.
goes shopping at Old Navy. Yeah, she's
That's true.
There's a lot.
How old are they?
My son is 3. He's almost 4. He turns 4 in February.
Okay.
He'll let you know that. And my daughter is 1.5.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Fun age.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you've had those. You've had that experience at one
I
time.
vaguely remember that. Yes.
Well, so where did you grow up at? Where'd you come from?
Yeah, so I'm from the Valley, born and raised. Went to North Hollywood High School. Actually, so did my wife. That's where we met. And then so I Valley my whole life.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Did you play football? Are you studying sports in high school or?
Yeah, I played football, basketball, and baseball. I would say I played a lot more football and baseball than I did basketball. I was on it, but
What positions did you play?
in football I played quarterback. In baseball I was a pitcher.
All the good spots.
Yeah, exactly.
All the thinking spots.
right. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Well, I think you've coached. You've been a North Hollywood High coaching. Have you ever coached a game of baseball there?
I think not. I did one time. Yeah, I do remember there was a track in the outfield. I remember
There is a track in the
Yeah,
outfield. Actually, they've torn it down
Oh, really?
and
Oh.
they've
Made
redone
some
the whole-
improvements?
They recently are redoing the school.
Nice.
Um,
Well
and I
deserved.
guess
Well-
they moved where the baseball field was, but
Yeah.
you don't
Well,
play baseball
back-
with Hollywood without
back-
knowing where
yeah,
the
ba-
lip of the track is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, back in the day, also, if you hit a hard ball down the third base line, the lefty would have to go to Chandler to chase it down.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
It rolled forever.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of disproportionate funding predicated on home values. I think that's one of the downsides because you don't live in a high economic area and your kids pay a price by not having the resources and the same opportunities as other kids. So I always kind of just thought I'd throw that in
Yeah,
there.
no, I agree.
Non-political here.
I agree
but-
100%. I know North Hollywood, over there, the football field was poorly lit. It was all dirt. It wasn't.
Yeah.
They put turf in since, or is it still a grass field?
I'm not sure what they're going to do. I think they are going to have a grass field, or they still do.
That'd be nice for them.
Yeah, but the school looks really nice.
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
Yeah, well, these charter
One
schools
step
seem to
at a
get whatever
time.
they want nowadays, so hopefully they get, because North Hollywood has a great tradition over all the years. Okay. So let's talk about you as a coach now. At what point, evidently your playing career was coming to an end at some point, and you said, hey, the next level's maybe not there as a player. What got you into coaching? What was the bug that you said, hey, I want to try coaching this now instead of playing it?
What was your first job?
Yeah, so I actually, I always knew I wanted to coach, just because, like you said, you see long term, and you're not going to play in the NFL, and so it's like, oh, what's the next best thing, right? Being able to compete and coach, and my first job ever was actually at St. John's. I was the there was a prep school attached to the university, and as a freshman there, I needed a work study job, and I landed the job as like the JV boys basketball coach at that prep school. So that was my first intro to coaching. It was awesome because that school they bring in people from all over the world. And so I had a team that we had like 2 kids from South Africa, 2 kids from China, 2 kids from Minnesota where we were, and then like 1 other kid from somewhere else in the U.S. And it was just like a really cool group of kids that really got me into it. And then from there, my sophomore year in college, going into that summer, I landed an internship with the football strength and conditioning staff at UCLA. And so I did that for the full summer, working with their players, and that was like I feel like my introduction to like high level coaching.
Sure.
And that just the quality of the guys I worked with and just that level was really exciting.
Sure, just being a sponge there, it must have thousands of things was wiped into you. Just the things you would learn and the way they would go about their business, and
Yeah,
that's invaluable experience.
It's certainly not a gig that you benefit from not being around quality people.
Right.
I mean,
exactly,
so because you're soaking it up, just like Coach said, that's a big part of everything. Take the good stuff.
Oh, totally, yeah. And so learned a ton there, and then went back and when I graduated college, got a job as a graduate assistant at the University of San Diego. And then from there, went to Santa Monica College, and then landed a job at Crespi High School, which was my kind of introduction to the high school level as a coach, and really fell in love with it. It's a really unique time to participate in these kids' lives. And it's just the amount of growth that, even like these past 4 years of Burroughs, you see a kid come in as a freshman and just physically their growth is insane to be part of. But then also just like the, maturation over that 4-year period is a really cool experience to be part of.
For sure. It's everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, what's your specialty as a coach? What do you think is your, offense, defense? Because every coach has his,
Are you an organizational wizard, or do you have just surrounded by great people? Or
surrounded by great people.
That always helps.
Yeah. No. That definitely surrounded. If I'd done anything really well, I think I hired really well.
It's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
Burroughs, but I was more of an offensive guy, playing. My background playing, and then just where I went into in the coaching was more on the offensive side. So that's something I've kind of tried to put a lot of my focus into. But once you're the head coach, you got to have a feel for at least what you want.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. And that's true. But look at McVay with the Rams. I mean, he is an offensive wizard.
Right.
And really, when he puts his mind, I give him a lot of respect because after he won the Super Bowl, he had great players and everything else, and it was kind of, made for to win that game. And then there was talk he was going to leave. And I said, if he leaves, I'm going to lose respect for him, because if you are a great coach, as a measure of man, how do you rebuild a team in your own image to make it work for you? And he's doing that. And you watch his offense sometimes, and it's very imaginative.
Yeah, but if Amazon offered me $100 million, I would leave too.
There's always that.
Yeah.
You know what? I just do it for $1 million.
Yeah,
I'm cheap.
Yeah,
exactly.
Okay. Well, moving on a little bit here. So, and we just talked about, you're going to a new program now, and you started, of course, when you came to Burroughs, you probably didn't have much knowledge of the players of the program or anything. So the big thing a coach does, and we've been through it before too, is how do you get the players to buy into you, your philosophy, what you're trying to do? How do you mold the players? Because you're always going to have that player or two thinks, oh, this guy's that type of thing. What do you do to mold these players to your philosophy and to get them to play hard for you? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, I think it is. It's multiple things. It's definitely not just one thing that I think will, kind of flip the switch, right? I think it's built over time, just them having a real belief and trust that, number one, you're there for them, and you're there for their growth and their development, and that the environment you build is there to help maximize their potential and help them accomplish their goals. And that's number one. And then once you get in that environment, I think it's just really about having, a really high standard of expectations for everyone and treating and coaching everyone the same, whether it's your best player or maybe, a bottom of roster guy. Like you got to coach everyone the same. And I think just consistency over time doing that, it yields that kind of belief and trust. So I don't think you can walk in the door and expect people to, oh, I'm going to, run through a wall for this guy. I think it's just built over time, just how you go about your work, how you treat people, and then the type of environment you're able to build and put these kids in on a daily basis.
Yeah, well, that culture is everything. It's so much of what we do is X and O's in your case and different things in my case, but it comes down to culture. It really comes down to kids owning what you're talking about through everyone buying in. And it goes down to what you said. You treat everybody the same. We're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
So when you establish that early, it seems to work out a lot better.
Yeah, something I learned at Burroughs, like there was a saying that I had heard, I read about initially. It was like, oh, great programs or great coaches help, players envision, what they want to be, then they enable them and then they encourage them. And the biggest thing I learned at Burroughs over the past 4 years is in contrary to that, I think there is that key. Number one is to help these kids, kind of envision who they want to be, how to get there, and then encourage them. But I think the real growth happens is when you don't enable.
Absolutely.
And you let them take ownership of their experience. Like the senior class we had this past year at Burroughs, who came in as freshmen, they're the ones who really took, complete ownership of their experience. And they were the ones who were lifting on the weekends, throwing with each other on the weekends, doing all these extra things that really helped set themselves apart. And that wasn't us like hand holding, or that wasn't anything that we did special.
No, but that's where you must have created an atmosphere for those players to want to excel and to know that their hard work will pay off. I think, like you said, one set of rules for everybody is one of the most important thing in sports. You can't say, well, that's my star. If he's going to just practice, say, okay, that's our. No. Well, I mean, we even had rules such as the player had to, if he was going to miss a day, he had to let the coach know, not his parents.
Right.
It's part of learning responsibility.
Yeah.
But it's just part of also the one set of rules for everybody. And if one person's going to be punished for something, everybody would be punished for that one thing too if they did it. So, no, but I agree on what you're saying. I think you're right on the right track there.
Yeah, I think the best teams, like you said, best players, best teams, they completely own whatever the rules are, wherever the environment is, wherever the culture is. They take ownership of their experience. And
the best teams are run from within. Right. We can only do so much. You can only be a cheerleader so many times. It comes down to like their inner being.
Exactly.
So I agree.
Yeah, I mean it's absolutely where. And what about creating a winning atmosphere? Because we came to Burroughs really rough in the beginning and went through a year or two, had to learn to win, teach the players how to win, because that's as much as teach them how to catch a ball or something, is learning how to win, have that winning attitude.
Yeah.
So, and I think you're going to probably have the same thing at Westlake. They've had a couple down years, so now you got to establish that winning culture again. So, how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, I think like you said, it's kind of coaching cliche, but it's just a byproduct of how you operate on a daily basis, really, right? In terms of Burroughs, it wasn't just the kids had to learn how to win. It was my first head coaching experience, right? I had to learn how to win, right? And it's one thing when you're an assistant, and you're kind of able to, just kind of like, oh, I would have done it like this, or I would have done it like that. But then when you sit in that chair as the head coach, and it's like it's a lot different.
Absolutely.
You got to make when you have to make that decision, and so I think that was a big part of my growth. As a coach in my first couple of years of Burroughs was really learning, and figuring out what it takes to be successful consistently, what it looks like at practice, what it looks like in the off season, what it looks like, in day to day, how we communicate with coaches, how you communicate with players, how you work with admin, how you work with the parents. Like there's so many things,
So
that
many
go into,
facets. Yeah.
different buckets that you have to fill all
Hmm.
the time to really run a sustainable program that can compete for championships.
And then you have to coach on top of that.
And then you got to coach, and then exactly, and that's the fun part. That's
It
something too,
is.
like that. Head
I
coaching. It's,
I find the relief to be the games.
right,
It's
right,
like that's easy.
right, exactly. It's the build up all week. In football,
Yeah.
it's all week long. You're not sleeping. It's all you're thinking about. And then once the ball's kicked off, it's
Yep.
okay. Now you're comfortable.
I don't think people realize how much coaches take home losses or take home when you're not doing well as a team, and trying to figure. I mean, there is you don't turn that on and off. That's something that's kind of with you all the time. You're always thinking, what can I have done differently? What can we do differently? What do I need to change? Or maybe it's a personnel change somewhere too, which has probably got to be a tough thing.
Yeah, because if you're asking your players to always self-evaluate and be honest with themselves about how hard they're working, you've got to kind of do it to yourself. So then that's a good thing for everybody, I suppose, right? I mean,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I think especially when you're coordinator or you're position coach, you kind of just focused on that spot.
right.
But then when you become like a head coach, like the whole program, it's like you're not just thinking about Friday or like the offense.
Yep.
You're thinking about, okay, if this guy gets hurt, we're gonna have to move this guy over here. If we move this guy over here, we're gonna have to move this guy over here to
It's
fill
chess.
that spot.
It becomes
And
chess.
and you have to think about it, and it's all you think about really
Sure.
throughout the week. So I'm sure my wife could tell you, during football season, it is we're at night on the couch watching TV. I'm not really sitting there watching with her. I'm my head
Yep.
somewhere else.
Well, a drill I used to do all the time was we would take for that day's practice, we would pretend X player was injured, and now we've got to run a scrimmage without X player in it, and we would move the pieces around in a scrimmage. So if it did happen in the game, we
Contingency,
had a plan ready to go, or our plan B. Of
Yeah.
course, it always came down to plan C and D as times went on, but there was always that plan. By pretending in practice you didn't have that element or something, which always
Right.
helped us.
Yeah. That's another thing in balance, right? Like, how do you make sure you get enough guys, enough reps?
Yeah.
And how do you make sure that you're preparing guys and training the younger classmen?
Development.
Right, development. So it's a constant thing. That's the fun part about it, I think, especially being a head coach. The one part, there's a lot to it that it comes with the job that you got to just do as part of being a head coach.
Yeah, you
Sometimes-
compartmentalize
That's
it.
not fun,
Yeah,
right?
it's not great.
But the fun part of it is putting all the pieces together and trying to, like I said, fill all those buckets. And,
Yep.
and that balancing act can drive you crazy at times, but it's also a real fun challenge.
Sure. It's like the progression you look for.
Yeah.
The growth, personal growth. That's what makes you proud as a coach.
Right,
And winning certainly cures a lot of things too.
right.
Absolutely. So you're talking about the different aspects of your head coach. What is the one thing? Of course, we all know we've been there, but what is the one thing that people really don't realize about being a head coach? What are a couple of the elements that go into running a program that people on the outside have no idea that you have to be responsible for and have to do on a either daily or weekly basis?
Yeah, I think it's just being a head coach of a program. And you can speak to baseball better than I. Obviously, I can. But with football, especially like the volume of players that we have, like 100 to 120 players in a program, it's just you're responsible for them, not just on campus, not just if something happens in the community on a weekend, I usually find out about it pretty quick. Like
Especially in Burbank.
especially yeah. And so it's just it's that constant. It's nonstop. It is you could be we could be on our dead period in June, and you're gonna get a text at 9 p.m. about something, or
Yep.
you can be right before the game, and you're getting a text about something that has
You're-
nothing to do with the game.
You're never off.
You're never off, and I think that's something that that is different as when you're the head coach. It's just it's constant, and you're
You're never off.
Yeah, you can never be off.
Yeah.
And I think fundraising also is a huge aspect in high school sports. That I can imagine, college coach having to worry about fundraising. I'm sure they do to a point. They go to the big booster things, but you're responsible for fundraising for your program basically too, which is a huge thing.
fundraising.
And I don't know
You have
how.
a booster club?
Yeah, at Burroughs we have a booster club,
Yeah.
which they've been a great
Yeah.
asset. That's the thing that we got where I think things got really turned a corner was we talk about all these different buckets like strength and conditioning, booster like fundraising,
hmm
administration, all those things that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Like we built a really good infrastructure at Burroughs
Key.
with all those pieces
Mhm.
where I think we were able to operate really efficiently and effectively.
Yeah.
Where early on I just didn't know how to do it right,
Yep.
and so I think there were some things that even just like dealing with parents, right, and having those conversations that we were able to get to where I think we really had it flowing pretty good the past couple of years.
That foundation's everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, I agree 100%. Let's talk about your time at Burroughs. 4 years there. What was your best experience? Okay, I'm sure winning the league title and the clock hit 0, and you knew that that's yours. And even though the Burbank Burroughs game was actually a non-dramatic game as it came out, but what was the
They're always dramatic.
Yeah.
I played in a couple of them.
But what's your best memory from the 4 years you spent at Burroughs? What was what's the thing you look back at and say, that was just bitching?
Yeah, I think first time you win a Burbank Burroughs game. The first one we did 3 years ago, we won. It was the winner goes to the playoffs, the loser goes home. It was
Remember that, yeah.
Next level.
It was a really good game. It was back and forth, and then we were able to pull it out. That was a great one, and especially when you win your first one, it's kind of like you get that
Sure.
monkey off your back a little.
Yeah.
Um,
First one's the toughest.
yeah, exactly. And then I think moments like the Muir game this past year. We had just some overall just I think it was just a really positive experience. We started the day I got hired was COVID shutdown. This is the day of COVID shutdown.
Gosh.
That's
Wow.
the day I got hired. So it's weird to think back to that first day. My son was 2 weeks old.
Oh my goodness.
To where we are now. Handed the program back over. It just a million memories that I can think about. Just most importantly, I think it's the relationship with the coaches and the kids, and we just had our banquet this past Sunday.
Yep.
And just the opportunity to see the seniors and talk to them, and
The last of the Hubbles,
yeah, the last of the Hubbles.
right?
Just like
Well,
people like that, you think about oh
yeah.
man, the Hubble family or the
Yeah.
Hernandez family or the Scazolas or just those people you build those relationships with over time that I think mean a lot.
Sure.
And made this experience really really special.
Yeah, the parents' positivity and their ability to stand behind the whole team, rather than just focus on their student, really plays well for the kids because the talk at the dinner table is more positive. If you can all get on the same page and give that message, kind of a nice thing. It takes it off the kids too.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Definitely. That's a big part of it too. That's a big part of winning right there. Right there is getting aligned with the parents.
Yeah, for sure.
Is
They're
because,
important.
yeah, if I'm telling you one thing to a kid
Yeah.
and they go home and hear something different, now the kid's in conflict, and you
Yeah.
can't expect them to they're gonna listen to their parents, right?
You want dialogue, you just don't want to be compromised by that dialogue. But
And sometimes it takes hard conversations. It takes
absolutely.
a lot of open conversations with not just the kid but the parents too,
Yep.
so they know where you stand on things. And I think, but that is a really really important part to it.
I've been so blessed in my program. I've had some amazing parents, and I think by and large, people have really been great in terms of just buying into what we do. So it makes the ride a lot more enjoyable, and the
Yeah.
kids really buy in a lot more. So
Yeah,
it's a nice thing.
When I left Burroughs, I was not allowed to address my team. I just was gone. I didn't say anything to them. When you let your team know that you were leaving for Westlake, how was the reaction? How was, I'm sure a lot of disappointed kids and stuff, especially the underclassmen. How tough was that moment?
Yeah, so I really didn't see anyone until this banquet. I'm a walk-on coach. So I wasn't on. I was working,
Right.
when all this stuff went down. And
Yeah,
so
I don't think people realize that most of us coaches actually have to work a real job, 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day, besides the 10 hours a day you put in for coaching too. So
right.
yeah, so go ahead.
No, yeah, and so this weekend was kind of like the first weekend where I got to see everyone in one spot. And I think just tried to be honest. Some parents asked, why or this or that. Just tried to, just, just tell them why, and it was so most of it was positive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anybody that's in your corner is going to want a good opportunity for you and be happy for your family. So
right,
that's the bottom line.
exactly.
And you're a young guy and you're moving up the ladder, and
Yeah,
Westlake
absolutely.
is the next step up that ladder. So what attracted you to the Westlake job?
I mean, a lot of things. I think in football, it's for a long time, it was a really premier program in Southern California and even
Legendary coach.
nationally.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Nationally,
Jim Banker did a heck of a
yeah.
job there.
Yeah, and I think someone told me that if you go into a Dick's Sporting Goods in anywhere in the country, there's actually a Westlake football like on their banners, like as a Westlake football player. So that's So
Yeah.
again, the program, what it was, and just the opportunity to really try to challenge yourself. It's kind of like you said, take your philosophies, take your beliefs, and see that could it work at elsewhere in a different situation. And the administration is really committed to building football back up, and getting to where they where that community feels that Westlake football belongs. So that's number one. That was number one as I started the conversations with them, was that check that box, because that's number one first, right? You gotta get the right administration, and then just as you keep kind of going through it and talking to more and more people, whether it be alumni at Westlake or some of the old coaches they've had, or just people in the community and people who know football and the coaching community, just a lot of people kept coming back that like that place is special. It's a really special spot, and that's how when it came down to it, that's just how me and my wife, I kept telling her the whole time, like, are we, we get this, we're gonna do it, it was definitely a we, thing. And so
It's always a we thing.
yeah,
Yeah. I've been married 35 years, so it's always
right,
it's always
exactly,
a we thing.
right. And so when they offered it, we jumped on the opportunity, and it's been an exciting couple weeks.
That's great.
Now you talk about assistant coaches and staffing and all that. Are you bringing anybody with you, or are you have to hire all new people? And then how do you go about doing that at a new school that you have no experience with?
Yeah, I think we're still finalizing all that, but yeah, it's gonna be a mix of both. Some guys that were with me at Burroughs, and then some guys that I've known maybe from other stops, or I know a couple guys that maybe I've worked with someone who know this individual. But it's really finding the right fit for that school. I think like at Burroughs, when I jumped in, I'd been coaching different places, and there were some people to reach out to, but then you kind of learn what is the business model of school. For example, like in Burroughs is it's a community program. And I would, even though I've, grew up in North Hollywood, Cedar City, right down the street, Burbank, you gotta know people to be in Burbank, right?
Right. That's
His Burbank,
Mayberry.
yeah, exactly. And so having people like Keith Recchia and Jose Calzadilla, and Eric Hernandez, who would, they're all alums. Fabian Ospina was our Frosh coach right away, and like they're all alums. And to me, that was like, okay, if I can get as many alums as possible
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
at least they can help me kind of navigate this initially.
Yeah.
And then from there, it was like, okay, let's find people who work in Burbank.
Mhm.
And then so we found some people there, and then as we we started off with a really small staff. The whole coaching staff would always be like, well, we need more people. I'm like, yeah, we do,
Gotta
but
get the right
you gotta get the right people.
right-
And so over
absolutely.
time, we built it up, and we were able to get a really quality staff.
Such a huge
Yeah.
element, is the assistant coach. It's so underrated.
It's the most important part. Yeah.
It really is, because you can't do everything. I mean, especially in football. I find football to be overwhelming when I know what goes on behind those scenes, because it's much more complex than baseball is. I know it is. And just the sheer numbers, like you said, 100 guys,
Right.
That's crazy.
I remember back in when I was at Crespi in the earlier years. Riddell, I think it was
Bill Riddell.
Bill Riddell was the
Mhm.
head coach, and I used to watch his practice and games, and he just sat off to the side, and everybody else ran everything, and he was just more or less
I've kind of gotten to that
the
point. That's part
figurehead.
of being 64 years old.
Yeah.
I kind of sit back and I'm the orchestrator,
Right.
But I've got a lot of young coaches. I've got a couple of alumni, brand new coaches a couple years in. So, yeah, hire great people, smart people, people that are better than you in certain aspects.
Totally.
Be humble enough to accept that. You're
Yeah.
probably going to benefit,
This year I was more of a CEO. I
Yeah.
could say
Yeah.
we were able to hire a great defense coordinator that was at Pasadena High School. Ron Jones, he actually was just named the head coach there. He came over this year. We hired my old high school head coach, Doug Bledsoe, to be our D-line coach. We had another guy who was the head coach at Glendale and Canyon come be our offense coordinator, Joe Mayale.
Yeah.
And so we had a bunch of guys who like been head coaches and a bunch of guys who've been at Burroughs for a long time
Yep.
who could be head coaches if they wanted to.
Sure.
And so for me, just surrounding myself with a really veteran group that, number one, we're aligned with, putting what's best for the kids first.
Mhm.
And then from there, being aligned, working, let's all get in the right direction and try to get this thing going right.
So important for them to be on the other side of that rope if you're in the hole. You want those guys pulling you up. You want those guys to be those guys. They're going to stand behind you. They believe in you. It's vice versa. Then it's always good.
Totally, yeah.
I'm blessed in that way. My coaches are phenomenal.
Yeah, it
So
was a really, really, really enjoyable year with the coaches we had. It
Yeah.
was awesome.
Even when I was there with you.
you presented challenges, coach, but you taught me more about coaching than I probably knew the previous 10 years. So
Well, we
take the
actually
good with the bad.
we
No,
actually
I'm just kidding.
we
You were
actually were a
great.
good team together. We did
We
very
were.
well. That's why
We were Abbott and Costello.
if I ever go back, that's where I'm going.
Well, doors always open.
So finally, you were a quarterback, in your day, and it's probably the most vital position on the field, as we've learned now, especially in the NFL, where when a quarterback goes down, and once in a while we get the guy like in Cincinnati who steps up and keeps winning, but on the most part, the second string quarterbacks are struggling, which I've always found extremely interesting in the fact that backup quarterbacks in the NFL were star college quarterbacks. They're not just some guy. They
Right.
actually, for their school did amazing things. And yet they get it to the NFL level and they just struggle with a 10-yard pass, a 15-yard pass. They struggle, so so once in a while you get your Brodies and people like who's the guy for Frisco?
Purdy?
Purdy.
Yeah.
Get your Purdies, all of a sudden, whoa, I mean, nobody expected that.
Right.
But you're a quarterback. What is it that you look for in the makeup of a quarterback and of a player, especially if that guy, because that guy's out there, he's leading, and he's got to be your guy, So what do you look for in his makeup?
Yeah, there's a few things. Just the kind of the intangibles that you want someone who can instill belief in the rest of the team that when this guy's out there, we got a chance to win. I think that's number one.
That's huge.
Because there's a lot of ways to play quarterback. You can, we've done it with a few different quarterbacks at Burroughs, even my, short time there. We had a great one the past 2 years who was, Chris Kulikov. But he, for example, he's a guy that when he's in, everyone felt like we could beat anybody played against. So that's number one. And then number two, just a real good feel for the game. I think they have to have a good understanding for the game of football. I think if they just kind of are guys who go out there and are kind of into football and not really,
Football players.
something they do,
Yeah.
then it's going to be tough. But usually the best quarterbacks I've been around, like this is something they're all in on, and they really want to be great at it, and they get the people around them to go to the park on Sunday to throw. They get there, they go and they do the extra work and they do the extra things on their own, and it shows. And so I think that those kind of guys stand out. And
Yeah.
if you have a quarterback who doesn't do that, it's tough. Like 2 years ago, we had another great quarterback who wasn't a natural quarterback, John English, who was great for us. Took us to the playoffs, beat Burbank.
Is that Gary English's son?
It is his, yeah.
Gary.
Uh-huh.
I-
And
I coached Gary English.
oh yeah, yeah. No, that's another
Burbank.
that's another great family also, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That's actually their son Andrew was our Frosh offense coordinator this year.
Okay.
But yeah, John was like an incredible quarterback for us. But even though that wasn't like his natural position, when he was out there, we knew we had a chance because he
Gamer.
yeah, exactly. He had a moxie to him, and he had an ability to to really instill belief. So guys play harder, and they feel like even if you're down a little, we got a guy that can get us back into this.
Well, just the fact that you used to be a quarterback too is going to be a huge asset to whoever you have as a position. What was the hardest part of quarterbacking for you? Was it remembering the plays? Was it trying to read the defenses? Or what was the hardest part that you had to really work at?
The hardest part for me,
Yes. For you as a quarterback.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think a lot of it. I think all of it's hard. It's not easy to read a defense. It's not easy to be able to throw on time. It's not easy to be able to communicate all the plays correctly at all the time to your offense. It's not easy to avoid a pass rush. So for me, I was not a super gifted athlete. So I think that all goes into it. I couldn't just make plays on my own. You have to make sure that you have the right guys around you and everything. So
Yeah, football's so
team oriented.
Oh my goodness.
Pitching was much more of a breeze. 'Cause it's like,
Absolutely.
I'm up there on the mound.
It's me and you,
Yeah.
baby.
No scrambling on the mound.
Exactly. No one's coming after you. Yeah.
Because I always said probably one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the NFL was Archie Manning. Unfortunately, he played for the Saints in the 70s. So consequently, he wasn't very good,
Right.
in comparison. It's probably better than his kids.
Right.
Probably was. Okay. So what we always do, we try to end every show. We kind of talk about it, kind of an outside subject. We think it's just a kind of a topical subject. And this week we're going to talk. We thought about the player transfer portal in college, and I believe today was the first of the signing days where they could transfer and sign with other teams and everything else. And it's really changed the face of college football in many aspects. And in all honesty, I'll tell you what, the way the CIF treats transfers now, they should do the same damn thing in high school also, because they're not investigating anybody or anything else. And people are transferring for athletics, and they just don't say it, but they are. But college decided, okay, we're going to go ahead and we'll have the transfer portal and no questions asked, and in you go and out you go. What are your feelings? What are both your guys' feelings on? Has that been successful? You think it's been a good thing?
I think it's a byproduct of litigation and the threat of litigation. I don't think school districts are willing to go, because they're the actual CIF when it comes to, supervising what's going on. They're the entity that is actually responsible for that.
Right. And what
The
about
CIF doesn't have some secret
Right, but
service.
what about the college level? Has that been good for college?
Is it good for college? I think it's inevitable because of the likeness, whole issue. I think you've turned people into pros essentially. So I don't know how you can get around it. You've kind of opened the can.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think
right or wrong, I don't know. I'd like to be more of a purist and say no, but I also know the reality, and it's probably going to happen.
yeah. Well, I'm a little younger.
Sure.
So I like it.
Yeah.
I think I don't like the idea of someone, like if you want to transfer, you should be able to transfer, right? Especially
Sure.
at the college level. Like they say, like college football is now pro football, and high school football is basically college football, right?
Absolutely.
But the college level now, with name, image, likeness, with transfer portal, I think I heard Chip Kelly talk about this the other day. I think they just need to change the total business format of college football. If you do it with with using like the old structure where it's just you're using this like amateurism kind of format with this professional model blast on top of it,
Mhm.
yeah, you're gonna have a lot of issues, right? Because there's no real structure for NIL. There's no real structure for there's not player contracts. There's no anything like that.
Should they all make the same amount of money?
No, because I don't think anyone does. You know what I mean? Like even in the NFL, they don't, right?
Right.
I think you have to create some type of salary system. I think I agree with what Chip Kelly was talking about. I think you have to separate football from all the other sports.
I saw that interview.
Yeah,
He made some good points.
Yeah, I think you have to do that, and then like I would follow an NFL model, like with the 64 teams you have in FBS football. If you're gonna make them professionals, right? And compensate them with TV deals, compensate them with all the stuff, pay them through the schools. But also on the flip side, maybe you do, you sign a contract, or maybe there is a draft, or maybe there is some type of.
So would that apply to every other sport?
No, I think football is separate.
Just football separate?
I think because they can do that financially.
Just on title, what's the title? Title
IX?
Title IX, that would be
Or equal.
Yeah, because if a woman's team wasn't getting that same
Well, that's
consideration-
not I'm saying that they couldn't get paid.
right.
I'm just saying it's a different
I always thought
pay structure.
maybe a pool, a pool. Because really, why should the running back, although he may be the NFL prospect, why should he make more than the guard that's pulling for him, or the tight end or the quarterback, or because I don't know, as a player, I don't know if I'd play as hard if I thought the guy behind me was, benefiting more than me.
Well, look at the NBA in-season tournament. Each guy got $500,000 in Lakers. Didn't matter if you played or
For
not.
some of those guys, that was 45% of their salary. For other guys, it was 1% of their salary. So, if you're LeBron, but those guys actually played harder, I think, because they wanted those other guys to get $500,000 because it was meaningful on the low end. If you're making 1.4, 500 is a lot.
I think it's a complicated issue that
It is,
I don't have the right answer for.
I don't think there is a right answer.
No, we don't. And I think college football in the next 5 years is going to be totally changed.
It's all new territory.
With the,
you see,
Pac-12 gone and everything else. So.
Well, that's the crazy part too, right? I mean, the Pac-12 just disappears like
crazy.
And so I think that's where the football model, in terms of when I talk about being separate, not only because it's just Title IX, but like it's a separate entity. Like I think. Like Notre Dame's an independent school. Like you could make independent. That was his whole pitch. Was
right.
that
I saw it.
Football should be totally independent.
Right.
And then you
and they should keep the Pac-12 or all the other sports.
Or exactly. Because it's crazy. What's crazy is like football. Football can fly on a Thursday and play a game, and maybe that's 5, 6, 7 flights a year.
UCLA may have a doubleheader in Arizona. Compared to
UCLA now may have to play to Rutgers.
Exactly.
Exactly. And now it's crazy.
8-day trip.
Yeah, which is wild.
Yeah.
And so I think someone will eventually figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like this.
I would just like to see a more proactive approach. That's always my thing with people making decisions is be proactive about it though. Like before you make that move, maybe consider those things.
Right.
To a high level.
Right. So, exactly. I think it's interesting though. Like, it's kind of like, how much the NIL collectives kind of funny thing is like, I wonder how much USC has or how much Texas A&M has. Like, like it's kind of like a fun game kind of play. Like,
it's going to make some really top-heavy teams. The teams with the budget and the teams without. So there's going to be probably just a high-level league, and then everybody else.
My belief is they should follow the European soccer model, where there's relegation, and you take you could start at like the bottom league, and through time, if you put in resources and everything, you could potentially take like a Cal Lutheran,
right,
and potentially
be Manchester,
or but eventually they could go play Alabama. You know what I mean? They could build their way up to the SEC. That would be fun.
Right. Yeah, that would be cool. That's what's great about the NCAA tournament.
Right, exactly.
People love that,
Right.
I never knew what that relegation stuff was until I watched Ted Lasso. Right. And I understood the whole concept behind it, which I get it. It's good. I mean, but yeah, I think college football, and the NILs, I heard Caleb Williams has got paid millions of dollars and he's already burned through it. Now, for a college kid to do that, I think if I have an NFL team, I'd be a little worried about that because I don't think players realize. I know in baseball, I've talked to a lot of scouts, and I've had 2 first-round draft picks, and 4 guys make it. And I think players don't realize they look at a whole lot more besides can he throw, can he hit, or can he catch a ball, or can he run? They look at a lot more than that before they're going to pay that kind of money out. They look at the measure of the man.
Yeah, I think
you realize that.
I'm sure that's another data point now is how they manage their if they know that this individual's making a nice NIL deal or whatever, can they handle that kind of money? But again, I think those guys like a Caleb Williams, he's gonna be all right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
well,
he's gonna be.
I hope he can
just
do
fine.
in NFL what he does in college, because he's very special in college. So
Our program did a commercial with Ryan Howard about 10 years ago, and I got to talk to him quite a bit because it took 12 hours to do a 3-minute commercial.
Right.
But and all our players were in it. It was great. But that's one of the things he talked about. It's like his dad is his agent, you know. So surround yourself by great people. Again, kind of like coaching. You know, get the right people around you, and you're not going to go through that money probably.
Right. Exactly.
You know.
That's why my wife is in control of our bank.
Exactly. Exactly. I get my allowance, and I'm happy.
Right.
You know?
well, Coach, I think that's a wrap on tonight. I really appreciate you coming on the show tonight.
Good to meet you, Coach.
I think Westlake's got a great coach coming out there. Hopefully, if some of the players listen to this, they'll have a little bit of knowledge of what you're kind of looking for in a player. I think Burroughs was lucky to have you, and you proved yourself, especially any coach who went through COVID, and that goes for both you guys. Take my hat off to you. You know, I mean, it
was a challenge. I'll tell you.
That was tough times.
I'll say, not just that was definitely a challenge. It was kind of unique because I hadn't met my team yet. I never met them until kind of COVID was part of our
That's
COVID
crazy.
season, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So I just, but that's a whole different story. But I think the success we had at Burroughs, was really, I think it talks a lot about the Burbank community. It's a special place. That means a lot to me, and I'm just really grateful that I was able to be an implant here for a couple of years. It was a special group of people, and I think like your guys selves, the Microcephos of the world. We talked about the English family, the Hubble family.
Yep.
It's a really special place that I'm happy that I was able to participate in.
Yeah, we appreciate you, Coach.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, anything you want to leave us with?
See you next time. It's been great.
Absolutely. Coach Craven, thank you. Coach Hart, thank you. This is Coach Sherwood saying thank you all for listening, and we will talk to you next time.
My Burbank Talks would like to thank all of My Burbank's advertisers for their continued support. Burbank Water and Power, Cusimano Real Estate Group, UME Credit Union, Burbank Chamber of Commerce, Gain Credit Union, Providence St. Joseph Medical Center, Community Chevrolet, Media City Credit Union, UCLA Health, Tequila's Burbank, Logix Credit Union, Hill Street Cafe, Bertain Escobar Wealth Management, and the UPS Store on 3rd Street.